What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What Studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote right there. And maybe you can have me entertaining you at your next event. Let me entertain you. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Let's learn some stuff right here on the program. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, April 30th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, drug shows promise in treating COVID-19 patients. A federal trial found that the Gilead Sciences antiviral drug remdesivir can speed the recovery of COVID-19 patients, and the Food and Drug Administration reportedly plans to issue an emergency approval to start using it. Trump administration officials said Wednesday, quote, "This is very optimistic," end quote, said Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Gilead Sciences said its own trial and another overseen by the Infectious Diseases Institute showed the drug can cut recovery times. The drug maker's study found at least 50% of patients treated with remdesivir improved. The overall mortality rate of the study was 7%, and a few patients developed bad side effects. A separate study concluded remdesivir was, quote, safe and adequately tolerated, end quote, but, quote, did not provide significant benefits over placebo, end quote. This is according to the New York Times. Number 2. Economy contracts at 4.8% annual rate in first quarter. The U.S. economy contracted at an annual rate of 4.8% in the first quarter of 2020 as businesses lost customers or shut down entirely because of the coronavirus pandemic, which has now killed more than 60,000 people in the United States. It was the first quarterly drop in 6 years and the steepest since the Great Recession. The first quarter included 2 months before widespread coronavirus shutdowns, but the second quarter won't. So it's expected to be even worse. Some experts warn the economy could contract a rate of up to 40% in the second 3-month period of 2020. Data from the Labor Department recently showed that more than 26 million Americans have filed initial unemployment claims over 5 weeks, wiping out all of the job gains since the Great Recession. This is according to the Associated Press and the Washington Post. Number 3, coronavirus toll equals deadliest flu season since 1967. The U.S. coronavirus death toll reached 61,000 on Wednesday, making the outbreak as deadly as the 2017-2018 flu season, when more than 61,000 people died, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The only flu season on record that have killed more in the United States were in 1967, when 100,000 Americans died, 1957, 116,000 deaths, and the 1918 Spanish flu outbreak, which killed 675,000. The U.S. has recorded a daily average of about 2,000 deaths in April from COVID-19, the respiratory illness caused by the novel coronavirus. Public health officials believe the real toll is higher, but many deaths were not added to the total due to limited testing. This is according to Reuters. Number 4, White House orders intelligence review of WHO, China on coronavirus. The White House has ordered intelligence agencies to review communications, intercepts, satellite imagery, and other data sources to determine whether China and the World Health Organization hid early information on the coronavirus outbreak first detected in Wuhan, China. NBC News reported Wednesday, citing current and former U.S. officials. The, quote, tasking, end quote, was sent to the National Security Agency and the Defense Intelligence Agency last week. The CIA has received similar orders. President Trump said Wednesday he was, quote, getting pieces already, and we're not happy about it. And we are by far the largest contributor to WHO, World Health, and they misled us. Right now, they're literally a pipe organ for China, end quote. Beijing has called the cover-up allegations, quote, barefaced lies, end quote. This is according to NBC News. Number 5, Fed keeps interest rates near zero. The Federal Reserve said at the close of a 2-day policy meeting on Wednesday that it would hold its benchmark short-term interest rate near zero to help support the economy through the coronavirus crisis. The historically low federal funds rate has helped bring down credit card and mortgage rates, although consumers who don't have good credit can find it hard to borrow from jittery banks. The U.S. Central Bank also plans to expand the number of cities and counties eligible for its bond buying program to help keep local and state governments afloat. Quote, the most significant responsibility of the Fed now is to make sure credit markets continue to function, end quote, said Greg McBride, chief financial analyst at Bankrate.com. Quote, without functioning credit markets, there will be no economic recovery. End quote. This is according to CNBC. Number 6, Lebanon faces third night of unrest over economic crisis. Lebanese cities were rocked by a third night of unrest on Wednesday as small crowds took to the streets to protest a deepening economic crisis. In Tripoli, in northern Lebanon, protesters targeted members of the military with fireworks and stones. Soldiers responded by firing rubber bullets. Lebanon's currency has lost half its value since October, driving prices and unemployment sharply higher. The Lebanese pound plunged further last week, triggering the unrest. The country's leaders are trying to finalize an economic rescue plan, a necessary step to negotiate with foreign leaders. The country defaulted on its debt last month so it could afford key imports. This is according to Reuters. Number 7, Whitmer announces plan to offer free college to essential workers. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Democrat, on Wednesday unveiled a plan to provide tuition-free college or technical certification for essential workers who are serving during the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. Whitmer's, quote, futures for frontliners, end quote, program would be much like what the GI Bill does for military members, veterans, and their dependents. Workers, quote, staffing our hospitals and nursing homes, stocking the shelves at grocery stores, providing child care to critical infrastructure workers, manufacturing PPE, protecting public safety, picking up trash, or delivering supplies, end quote, would be among those eligible, the state said. Whitmer added that federal grant money would be used to cover the program's costs. Whitmer's aggressive response to the crisis has included a broad stay-at-home order that has triggered protests by people demanding the reopening of the state's economy. This is according to the Detroit Free Press. Number 8, Trump announces Arizona trip after weeks in confinement. President Trump announced Wednesday that he would end his 7-week-long confinement at the White House during the coronavirus pandemic to travel to Arizona, a presidential battleground state. Quote, I think I'm going to Arizona next week, and we look forward to that. And I'm going, I hope, to Ohio very soon, end quote. Trump said he would attend an event at an Arizona industry site, but not hold a rally because it is, quote, too soon for everybody to get together and stand next to each other, end quote. Bloomberg News reported that Trump would tour a facility making personal protective equipment. Trump said he hoped to be able to resume large rallies, quote, in the not too distant future, end quote. But that holding one right now with empty seats to allow social distancing, quote, wouldn't look too good, end quote. This is according to the New York Post. Number 9, report California to close beaches and parks. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, on Thursday is expected to announce an order to close all state beaches and parks effective Friday to curb spreading of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Quote, we wanted to give all of our members a heads up about this in order to provide time for you to plan for any situations you might expect as a result, knowing each community has its own dynamics, end quote. A memo to police departments obtained by CNN said the move comes after crowds gathered at many Southern California beaches last weekend, and as Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti announced that his city would become the first major municipality in the nation to offer coronavirus testing for anyone who wants it, regardless of whether they have COVID-19 symptoms. This is according to CNN and CNBC. Number 10, UN expert warns Myanmar committing more war crimes during pandemic. A United Nations human rights expert said Wednesday that Myanmar might be committing more war crimes against the ethnic minority populations. Quote, while the world is occupied with the COVID-19 pandemic, the Myanmar military continues to escalate its assault in Rakhine State, targeting the civilian population, end quote, said Yanghee Lee, the outgoing UN special rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar. The country's military has already been accused of genocide after a 2017 crackdown on the Rohingya Muslim minority prompted nearly 750,000 people to seek refuge in neighboring Bangladesh. More than 150,000 reportedly have been displaced during the latest fighting between the Myanmar military and an armed group made up primarily of members of the Buddhist Rakhine ethnic group. This is according to Time. That's 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, April 30th, 2020. I hope everyone out there is doing reasonably well. Drop me some comments. Let me know how you're doing. This has been What Makes You Smarter. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you.